Hey there gamers, how's it been? Good, I hope? Yeah, the upload schedule is chaotic, I know, please forgive me. Anyways, have you guys ever had those days where you just kind of scroll through your Steam library, not really sure of what to play? I've definitely had more than a few of those days. On one particular day, I was doing that and noticed the game Sunset Overdrive. I first played it somewhere around 2019, and while I did like it at the time, I didn't appreciate really how cool and how amazing the game looks, which is a shame considering how underrated the game is. So today, I'm gonna try to fix that issue. Sunset Overdrive is a very underrated game. So, what even is Sunset Overdrive? The game is an open-world shooter that took a lot of inspiration from other games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Jet Set Radio. The game takes place in a city called Sunset City. Original, I know. It was developed by Insomniac Games, which is the same company who made the first few Spyro games, Ratchet & Clank, and a few Spider-Man games. Directors Drew Murray and Marcus Smith began brainstorming the idea for Sunset Overdrive around 2011 after finishing the game Resistance 3. They mainly started with the idea of having a fast-paced action game mixed with an apocalypse setting and a lot of rock and roll. The initial pitch didn't really gain interest, but they were given another shot a week later, which is good because the overall reaction to the first pitch was basically, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Anyways, on the second pitch, they were able to successfully sell the idea of the game. They got Microsoft Studios as their publisher, and that kicked the development into full gear. Now, while they had a general idea of what they wanted, it was far from the finished product. They were originally going to make Sunset Overdrive a realistic, gritty survival game. They weren't completely sure on what the art direction was going to be, until they watched a music video by the Gorillaz called On Melancholy Hill. It was after looking at that music video that they started looking at other games like Jet Set Radio for inspiration, and so the game's traversal system was in the works. They wanted to put a lot of emphasis on mobility, so basically a lot more movement than just the typical walking and jumping. The team went through a lot of work to design a city that is both easy and fun to parkour around, along with designing AI that's fast enough to keep up with the player. In my honest opinion, Sunset Overdrive solved something that I always found so annoying in open world games, and that is traveling. Yeah, games like Grand Theft Auto and Skyrim are fun, but traveling all the way from one end of the map to the other? Yeah, not so fun. And sure, you can say, oh, but some of those games have a fast travel system. That doesn't make the experience any more fun. Also, while there is a fast travel system in Sunset Overdrive with a pretty amusing animation, I guarantee that you'll barely ever use it. Now, if there is anything that Insomniac is good at, it's their creativity when it comes to weapons. Anything from the flaming compensator, to the one-handed dragon, to the TN Teddy, which is honestly my favorite gun. It's almost to the point where every weapon in itself feels like a character. Speaking of which, something they wanted to put a lot of emphasis on is character customization. After all, the whole point of the game is that it's the apocalypse, and that gives you the opportunity to be whoever you want. Clothing options are not restricted by gender at all, so you can just go crazy with all the options. So the game spent 3 years in development, and eventually released in 2014 on October 28th. Now, the game did alright on launch, but there is one thing that hurt its sales. So remember how I mentioned that Microsoft Studios was their publisher? Yeah, a part of the deal was that they had to make the game Xbox One exclusive, which, as you probably know, wasn't the most popular console. I actually remember seeing commercials for this game upon release, and I was pretty sad that I couldn't play it. Lack of money and an Xbox One. So I ended up doing what a lot of others did. I just forgot it existed. That is, until 2018, when they released it for Steam and Windows. So, I bought it, I played it, and just recently replayed it. Has it aged well 7 years since its release? Let's find out. So the story starts in the year of 2027. The company Fizco hosts a party for the release of their new drink, Overcharged Delirium XT. However, like most huge corporations, they don't care about the well-being of their customers. It turns out that anybody who drinks it turns into a crazed, violent mutant. The player was right in the middle of the action the night that it happened. After some weeks on their own, the player gets aid from a survivor named Walt and another dude named Floyd. From there, it's your job to recruit different factions of the city to join together and take down Fizco. Those factions consist of the Oxfords, Troop Bushido, the Fargots, and Las Catrinas. My favorite group is Las Catrinas, for no biased reason. The four factions attack Fizco headquarters and try to destroy it by having the player ride a huge bottle of overcharge into the building. Sadly, the player gets killed in the explosion. However...
Whoa, wait a minute. That's the ending? Are you serious? Whose idea was that? Yours? Or yours? Bad move, guys. NeoGaf is gonna eat you alive.
The player basically goes, yeah, no, and decides to come back from the dead, because why not? It doesn't end there though. Fizco headquarters turns into a giant city-destroying robot, and after you beat said robot, you celebrate with drinks and fireworks, and it's just one nice happy ending. Okay, so I know I did skim through a lot of that, but I kinda had to. I love the characters, don't get me wrong, I love the jokes, but the story isn't really the game's strongest suit. It's good for what it is, but if you go in expecting some masterful, amazing storytelling, you're not gonna find it. Again, the story is good, but listen. You're not playing Sunset Overdrive for the story. Oh no. You're there for the gameplay. This game is like a teenager's dream. Fast-paced action, excessive violence and language, explosions going off left and right. The best way to describe this game is chaotic fun. It is really chaotic, and it is really fun. I'm honestly not able to describe too many games as fun. Well, no, that's a lie, but listen, this game just feels amazing to play. The game's controls are so smooth, the eye-popping visuals keep me more than entertained, and no matter how many endless swarms of enemies come out towards me, I'm more than excited to take them down. And while sometimes you can feel a bit overwhelmed by how many enemies there are, trust me, you don't get frustrated about dying. I mean, you even get some very entertaining respawn animations out of it. So while the game is amazing, something else that has won me over is the soundtrack. Like, sure, everything else can be great, but you gotta have a good soundtrack to go with it. I mean, I can't just sit in silence, you know? Well, I'm proud to say that the soundtrack is amazing. It's not really all one genre. There's definitely a lot of garage punk, post-punk, and definitely some pop punk in there. One of the game's main inspirations was rock and roll from the 50s and the 60s. So if you listen to the music and your first thought is rock, you're not exactly wrong. The most recognized band in the game's soundtrack is Bass Drum of Death, who made 3 original songs for the game and 1 licensed song. Other bands who are part of the original score is Meat Market, Cheap Time, Boats, The Bronx, and a lot more. Most of the song's themes have to do with punkish anger, dissatisfaction, and rejection. And yet despite these themes, the tracks are such a headbanger.
I think I better tell you 'cause it's something you should know. I leave a trail of bodies almost everywhere I go. I used to walk around here with a target on my back. If you ever see me coming, you will have a heart attack. Some people think I'm crazy, doesn't matter what they say. Killing's what I'm doing and I do it every day. I'm gonna get my gun out and shoot you in the face. It doesn't really matter, gotta get out of this place.
So, does this work well with Sunset Overdrive's aesthetics? Absolutely. Not only does it fit the world, but it fits the gameplay. When you're not doing anything, it's pretty much silent. Though once you start moving, the music starts playing, and it gets louder and more extreme, and the more actions you do, the more chaotic it gets. I honestly couldn't ask for a better soundtrack. Now, unfortunately, as much as I love this game, I do have to shame it for a few things. Most missions are good, but I cannot stress this enough. A lot of them are just, go to this place, collect this thing, and come back. That and a lot of, go to point A, then go to point B, then C. Quite a few missions are repetition. However, besides that critique, I really don't have anything else to mention. Other problems like possible bugs really aren't issues in the grand scheme of things. So now, we get back to the question that I asked near the beginning. Does this game still hold up today? Well, if this whole review hasn't been obvious, I'll spell it out for you. Sunset Overdrive is an amazing, dare I say, perfect game. Whether you're the type who takes games more seriously or you're the type who goofs off, you will love it. The world is fun to explore, the characters are entertaining, and the gameplay is such a rush. To this day, Sunset Overdrive is one of my most favorite games. And I would love to see a sequel one day. Actually, funny thing, while I was writing this, Insomniac made a tweet referencing Sunset Overdrive. For those of you who have been living under a rock, Insomniac released a new Ratchet & Clank game on June 11th earlier this year. Some promotional material for the game had to do with Sunset Overdrive. Also, the Fizzie account actually tweeted something, and their last tweet was in 2018. Maybe I'm just being hopeful, but this could mean something? I sure hope so. Anyways, this has been a review, I guess. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and for those of you who haven't played it, I hope you decide to now. I'll be seeing you next time.